And we're live.
Hello and welcome back to our 450th episode of the First Time Watchers podcast.
Because we like to watch.
450 times. My name is Tim Costa.
I'm Hermano de Silva.
And this is Walter Vinci.
And if you'd like to send feedback, you can always email us at firsttimewatchers@gmail.com. Speaking of feedback, guys, we have a big announcement. So, like I said, this is our 450th episode, which is, I guess, a big achievement by some standards. I don't know. But we do have a bigger number in mind, and that is number 500. So in a little over a year from now, we will be celebrating our 500th episode. However, that will also be our final episode of the podcast. We are ending this podcast at 500. And I blame Hermano.
Hey, we all agreed, okay?
Yes, you're right. We all agreed. We all agreed. It's always nice to blame somebody. If somebody has to be blamed, I'll just direct it towards you.
Look, we're not saying we're gone forever. We may make that amazing comeback like Michael Jordan did when he left. Remember when he came back and he was just as good as when he left?
I do, yes.
Yeah, especially when he was playing for the Wizards.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, 100%.
We'll come back in that style.
Sure.
Possibly.
Sure. Wally, what do you think about us ending this at 500? We've thrown this out for between each other for a little bit, and I think within the past few months we realized, you know what? I think there's an end date for us.
There should. I mean, the thing is, there always should be an end. Everything that's great has a beginning, a middle, and an end. We've done this for a long time.
10 years.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I think it's also a nice number to end on.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And I'm also going to put it out there. I think that episode 500 should be done in the same manner in which we started. We should all meet at somebody's place.
Well,
and record together.
We'll get there. I'm surely in another future episode.
It's over a year's time, and we have plenty of time to plan.
Yeah,
I can travel.
Well, we know at the very least, without announcing it now, I'm sure sometime in the future we will drop that bomb as to what we're going to be discussing, what film we're going to be discussing, and that'll be a nice surprise for a number of people, I'm sure. But
I think we should let that bomb drop at 475.
There you go. Sounds good.
And we have a nice 25 episode countdown till we get it.
Hermano, how do you feel about this? About us ending? About this coming to a close at some point next year? Do you feel sad? Is it bittersweet for you?
I don't know how to describe it. I mean, I know we've always sort of. I think specifically me and you. We always had. I think as far back as like when we were around 300, we had talked about the idea of like, how long do we keep this going? Like, how long do you think we can keep this going? And there's always been that like in the back of our minds, like how long are we going to do this for? And and I always thought like, hey, I'll keep doing it until it's not fun anymore. It's still fun. I enjoy doing it. It's a little harder now, like especially finding time to watch movies with 2 kids. Like things change. Like I had a lot of life changes that make it a little bit harder to find time to kind of juggle everything. And I don't go to theaters as much as you guys. I always feel like I'm just waiting on streaming services to deliver the goods. So I don't know. It's just become it feels maybe a little bit more like work at times. Well, and not so much like fun, but for the most part, it's still fun.
Yeah, look, we still do this on our spare time, essentially for free, and it's not like we're doing it like a lot of other people do, as in it's their job. A lot of people actually make money reviewing films, talking about films.
I wish we made money off this
podcasting. We have a very small but loyal fan base and patrons. We do. We actually have a few patrons that support us every month, and we can't be more thankful for that. But it doesn't pay the electricity bills. It doesn't pay the internet bills. It doesn't pay the mortgage. So otherwise, other than that, it's fun. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about it more in the next 50 episodes, and especially at 500. So, anyways, if you have any memories or criticisms of the last 450,
now's the time.
Now is the time. Let us have it for the next year or so. So, Moving on. In this episode, we check off a big movie for number 450 by discussing Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List. But before we get into that, it is time for Yay or Nay. This is the part of the show where we discuss what we have seen recently on our own. Walter.
All right, so I've been watching this series. It's been a lot of fun to check out. It kind of fell upon it by accident, and I don't believe I've talked about it prior. But that's The Flight Attendant. Came out in 2020. A reckless flight attendant with an alcohol problem wakes up in the wrong hotel in the wrong bed with a dead man and has no idea what happened. Unable to piece the night together, she begins to wonder if she could be the killer. This stars Kaylee Cuoco from Big Bang Theory fame as the titular flight attendant. And this whole series is basically like someone who really loves Hitchcock and like supernatural kind of movies mushed them together, and it's actually a lot of fun to watch. I think Kaylee brings a lot of life to this role. She's a train wreck, but she's a train wreck that you can kind of get behind as she's trying to piece together what the hell's happening, because she doesn't know what the fuck's going on. She's a flight attendant. You know what I mean? She's not like a spy or anything like that, because there are spies trying to get her that she's trying to stay ahead of, and at the same time just trying to still work her job as a flight attendant. It's a good series. I would say it's a yay.
Yeah, I've heard good things about that. I'll probably be catching up with that soon.
Well worth your time.
Yeah. One thing for me, so I think I've talked about this before, but I'm part of a film club, and every member of the film club assigns has a turn every month, and so this month somebody else assigned us a movie, and I'm going to read two plot synopsises to you, and I want to ask you which one sounds like the more interesting and exciting one. Veronica is brilliant, gifted, and beautiful, but the handsome aristocrat she loves cannot marry her because she is penniless and of questionable family. So Veronica's mother teaches her to become a courtesan, one of the exotic companions favored by the richest and most powerful Venetian men. Veronica courageously uses her charms to change destiny and to give herself a chance at true love. Okay, that's the first one. And this one. A Venetian courtesan becomes the hero to her city, but later becomes the target of an inquisition by the church for witchcraft.
The second one.
The second one sounds more interesting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if it's the Spanish Inquisition.
No, it's an Inquisition in Italy, and it's called Dangerous Beauty from 1998, starring Catherine McCormick and Rufus Sewell and Oliver Platt and Fred Ward of all people. Naomi Watts shows up in this. Moira Kelly. Jacqueline Bisset. There's a lot of known faces in this movie, but this movie's not good, guys. I did not enjoy this movie, and I'm in the minority because apparently a lot of other people in this club really like this movie. And out of 17,000 ratings, it has a 7.2 on IMDb, and I don't know why, because it's very formulaic. I thought this movie never really knew what it wanted to be. It's really tonally all over the place. And it frustrated and bored me a lot of the times. Like 1 minute it's a whimsical rom-com, the next it's like this overly melodramatic love triangle, and by the end it has this politically themed courtroom thriller in it. And look, I don't know. I didn't like the look of this either. It has this really hazy camera work and overuse of close-ups. This movie, kind of reminded me of Shakespeare in Love. Like it's like manufactured in a lab to be like Shakespeare in Love and like Oscar bait type movie, and no, it didn't work for me. Accents are all over the place. Costuming is fine, I guess, which is what you expect from this type of movie. The score sucks. The ending's even worse, and I still have no idea what Fred Ward is doing in a period piece. It's so strange. It's really weird. So that's a nay for Dangerous Beauty. Hermano.
Yes, I watched a movie with Saul Goodman, Doc Brown, and Wonder Woman's mom in it. Nobody.
Oh, nice.
Hey, what'd you think?
So I watched this a while back now. So I watched this during our break. I remember when I saw the trailer for this, I was really on the fence because I love Bob Odenkirk from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, of course. But I wasn't sure about him playing against type in sort of a John Wickish type film. because Bob Odenkirk typically doesn't play the action star, badass. So I was curious, not so sure that this would work, but I'm here to say it worked. So I liked it a lot.
It's good.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, as expected, John Wick is really popular. There's been a lot of movies that have come out that are in the stylings of, John Wick, of course. The Charlize Theron one that I can't remember now, the name of it, of course, is one. And then,
Blonde?
Atomic Blonde, yes. In the vein of John Wick, of course. And then Nobody. Yeah, I was surprised. Like, watching Bob Odenkirk, I feel like he really sold it, especially the transition from sort of like the mild-mannered family man to, the movie kind of sort of reveals through his actions, like his backstory and how he's able to sort of do all the stuff he's doing. I thought was interesting. Christopher Lloyd is obviously having a lot of fun with this. And again, another one that's playing sort of against type, but just works. I don't know, man. It just completely works. And yeah, I liked kind of the structure of it too, because it does sort of start off as like this random encounter where his house gets broken into and he decides to kind of step it back into his old life or his own ways. And then kind of how that turns out, and it kind of causes him to do something really dumb, like basically pick a fight. And then it ends up just being like one of those like, oh, this is definitely the wrong place at the wrong time. And you shouldn't have done this because it's going to, affect you going forward. So I kind of liked that whole like, setup. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it, man. Like from what I remember, it's definitely a film that I think is really watchable. I've been wanting to sort of rewatch it. So yeah, I highly recommend Nobody.
This is fun.
What are you doing?
I've been playing with the temporal fielder under our co-host.
So you've been wasting your time with this rather than turning Hermano back to normal?
Well, I started to, but then I got sidetracked by this.
You know what show never gets distracted?
The In Session Film Podcast.
That's right, Walter. The In Session Film Podcast is JD and Brendan.
See? Temporal fielders are role switched again.
Anyways, each week the In Session Film Podcast chooses a movie to review.
And then creates a top 3 list based on what they just saw.
This week, the In Session Film Podcast is reviewing 10.5, A Space-Age Childhood.
And continue their Steven Spielberg retrospective with his 1991 film, Hook.
You can find their show on Apple Podcasts by searching for, you guessed it, the In Session Film Podcast.
Or on the web at InSessionFilm.com.
So if you're in the mood for great movie reviews and discussion,
then check out the In Session Film Podcast on Apple Podcasts.
Or on the web at InSessionFilm.com.
MovieMavericks.com, broadcasting current box office breakdowns, movie news, and reviews. Now for your hosts, Jason and Trevor.
Hey now, even though we're over 200 episodes deep into the Movie Mavericks podcast, it's still not too late to start listening.
Where every show we give you 10 truths, 20 lies, and a bunch of Hollywood secrets.
It's like existentialism slipping into nihilism.
MovieMavericks.com.
Don't you mess around with me, you're a heartbreaker, dream maker, love taker, don't you mess around with me, you're a
podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Okay, let's talk about Schindler's List.
That's it. You can finish that page.
What did Goethe say about this? You just told him how many people you needed and you're not buying them. You're buying them, you're paying it for each of these names.
If you were still working for me, I'd expect you to talk me out of it. It's costing me a fortune. Finish the page and leave one space at the bottom.
The list is an absolute good. The list is life. All around its margins lies the gulf.
And just to warn people ahead of time, this will be a spoiler-filled discussion, so beware. The plot: in German-occupied Poland during World War II, industrialist Oskar Schindler gradually becomes concerned for his Jewish workforce after witnessing their persecution by the Nazis. The director, Steven Spielberg. The actors: Liam Neeson, Ralph Fiennes, Ben Kingsley, Carolyn Goodall, Jonathan Segel, Embeth Davids, Malgorzata Gebel, Shmuel Levy, Mark Ivanir, Beatrice McCullough, and a lot of other people. Wally, yes. This movie of all movies was on your list of shame.
Yes, sir.
And what was it like to finally catch up with Schindler's List?
I can see why people revere this movie. I think it's well put together. It's certainly well made, well shot. It's got a really, how else to put it, like the discs I have, it looks very similar to the same discs I have of Citizen Kane in terms of how sharp it looks, for a black and white film, and I think that that's a tribute to Steven Spielberg's power as a director and his talent, because it's a lot to be able to look at a scene and imagine it and see it in black and white when clearly it's going to be in color for you the entire time, and maintain the lighting and the level of detail that it takes to make it look as good as it does. I did a little bit of reading on it, and because one of the first thoughts that I had was this movie should be subtitled. I think almost all this movie should be subtitled. And I guess Steven Spielberg did toy with the idea of actually doing it completely in Polish and German, was concerned that he wouldn't be able to gauge performances if it was in a foreign language. Because I think that if it were in a foreign language, I think it'd be a real immersive kind of movie. That being said, a 3.5-hour movie at home is a lot harder to watch than a 3.5-hour movie in the theater, because it's very easy to just be distracted by anything going on around you while this is going on. And one thing that I was going into, thinking about when this movie was playing is, for those who don't know, I'm an avid historian when it comes to the First and Second World War. And I've read a lot of books, specifically a lot of testimonies of people who were at the camps. And I know, Tim, you sent out a text that it was a lot to take in. And that was kind of where I knew that what I've read from these people who have been there and what I'm actually seeing on screen, that the stuff on screen is going to be much softer than what I've read from these other people's accounts of what they were seeing and experiencing at the time. Because at the same time, if you're making a movie, the studio wants it to make money, and to do that, you've got to dance with the MPAA. So you can only go to certain parts of the line before they would probably have something to say about it. So that being said, like, is as graphic as these elements get in this movie, I can tell you that is merely scratching the surface as to what actually was going on. And it's interesting how they also portray Oskar Schindler, who I think that it's important to show that he wasn't always this good guy. You know, I mean, he was not motivated like other Germans who were, you know, hiding Jews or helping them get out of the country or creating fake papers. He was in it for the money. It wasn't until the last 2 years of the war that he really started to have a turn of heart as to what he was doing and what the Germans were doing, because he was part of the party, you know. And I think that is important to highlight that. He is certainly revered, and there is a tree in his honor, you know, in Israel because of his deeds in saving all these lives, and that he did make that turn. So he did do good, you know, at the end. And I would say it's also probably the most powerful performance I've seen. When at the end, when he is breaking down, I thought that packed a punch. This movie is just overall just really well made, really well written. It sticks to a lot of the historical. I don't know how buddy Schindler actually was with Eamon Geth, but you know, it does show what he was like before he had this turn of heart, and I think that's important to illustrate.
Hermano, so the text that Wally references is verbatim. I just finished this, and I hope you give yourself some time to decompress, because good Lord. That's what I sent to you two. And Hermano, was this a revisit for you?
It was. I'd only seen it once before. And that was around the time it came out, so 93, 94 probably. And so that's almost, 30 years ago? It'll probably be another 30 years before I see this again, because it is heavy, man. It is not a film, I mean, at least not for me, like, not something that I'm going to be like, you know what, I'm going to watch this once a year, because the subject matter just doesn't lend itself to rewatchability necessarily. So even though it is an excellent film, and I totally, give it credit where credit's due, but I sort of remembered the film a little bit differently too, like what Wally was describing about the Schindler character. I don't know why, but and of course, because I'd only seen it the one time and it had been so long, I thought he was basically not in the Nazi party, and he was like on board from the beginning to try to manipulate the German soldiers and the people in command and try to save these people through trickery and whatnot. But yeah, the film, as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, he does seem like he's a businessman and he's just doing it for money purposes, taking advantage of free labor. And then it's not till much later that I think he starts to maybe sort of bond with the people on some level, see, like, after seeing so many years of the atrocities, that he just starts to change his ways and starts to really I don't know, step up the saving of these people, because initially the film just kind of portrays it as like he's doing little things, like trying to get in Ray Fiennes' head about like, hey, you shouldn't just kill willy-nilly. That's not true power. True power is like, letting someone live, even though they've done something that you don't approve of or whatever. And like just his little mind games and with the people in charge and all that, I thought was interesting. But I think the strength of this film too is that it, like Wally said, it does probably, not go full, rated R with some of the terrible things you've probably heard, like true stories of people that survived this time. But I think that's sort of a strength of the film, because I think if it was only about that and only about featuring all the terrible things that happened, I think it'd be maybe a little bit too much for a lot of people. I think the strength of it is that it's in the details, in like the little things you notice, like just kind of the buildup of like, the people getting on the train and being told like, hey, your luggage will go on another train and we'll follow you. And then just almost following the journey of the luggage and seeing where it goes and what becomes of all their stuff and how it basically gets looted. And even like smaller things I noticed, like in one scene where they're first arriving at the I guess the Krakow ghetto or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
In one scene, they don't even really pay any attention to it, but you see what looks like some soldiers walking away with like some playground equipment.
Right.
And even just like little scenes like that, you're just like, wow, man, this is really hitting hard. Like, you're just seeing like how something so normal and benign is being taken away from these kids, these kids that were probably used to playing on that playground, and all of a sudden it's just being taken away because it's in the way of, them constructing, imprisonment camps or whatever. And just a lot of like little detail oriented stuff like that I really just kind of hit differently watching it this time. And I 100% agree with Wally. Like the end scene where this film goes and where Oskar Schindler has that kind of breakdown and starts like describing, how he thinks he could have done more, and like, why didn't he sell this car? Why didn't he sell this pin? I could have saved at least one life with this pin. And I came really close to like, tearing up right there. Like I was about as close as you can without a tear actually coming out.
Oh.
Little lip quivering. So
that's an interesting,
really powerful scene.
It's interesting that you both mention this scene, and while I agree that the movie, leading up to that moment, it earns that moment and it earns that emotion, but it's also, I think, the most performative part of the movie. That with any other, you expect any other historical epic, historical account movie to have I guess what you could say is an Oscar bait type moment, and that is the closest this movie comes to it. While for a movie that avoids all those kinds of tropes throughout, I think, and remains very realistic and very grounded, I think that's the most Oscar clip type moment. And look, like I said, it earns it by that time, but I think it stood out just enough for me to notice it.
I agree on one hand, but on the other hand, I think it was a pretty great move.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like historically accurate or anything like that,
Right.
because the entire film, like Liam Neeson, you see really the arch of his the arc of his character.
Very much so.
From how he starts, where he has it in the middle, and then like he has to play his cards so close to his chest.
Yep.
And then in that moment, just finally being able to let out all those emotions that he's been feeling.
Right.
So conflicted, so, trying to save all these people and do it in a way and kind of playing both sides and not revealing too much. I could just imagine how that must have weighed on someone like him.
What sells that moment really well, I'm going to try to get through this without choking up, is Ben Kingsley's reaction to that is really, really astounding, because his reaction is no different than anything else that he's reacted to previously in the film, but it just shows how Schindler could not have done this without Itzhak Stern's help and his own determination as well. Those moments that you see Itzhak Stern going through, helping out the people who are in line with the Nazi soldiers, and how he's helping them with their papers, the false papers, and giving them, bringing them to the factory. I mean, just you talk about the little moments. Those are those little moments right there, that are found throughout this entire film, and it's really astounding. And this is a film that really does just rock you to your core. And you talk about those little moments again, and I think of the many remarkable aspects of this movie. The one thing that stood out to me is how Spielberg is able to make every individual not feel like a background actor, but he somehow gives each person who is on screen a face, a name, a reason for being. We see them as humans and not the cattle the Nazis really treat them as. I'm astounded at the virtuosity of this film, and how you look at his career, And there's nothing really prior to this movie that would lead you to say, I think Steven Spielberg has this in him. You know, he has epic adventure movies in the Indiana Jones films and E.T. and Jaws, and I think the closest you could come to a historical moment film is maybe The Color Purple, which I've only seen bits and pieces of, and so I can't really judge it compared to this film. But the fact that he is able to do this and release Jurassic Park in the same fucking year, literally two of the best movies of all time, in the same year, is probably one of the greatest film achievements of all time. Because I was looking at I was trying to figure out when was he filming these movies, and he started filming Jurassic Park in August of 1992, and it wrapped in November 30th. And then he started filming March 1st of 1993. So 3 months later, he's still editing Jurassic Park because it has to be out by summertime, by June of 1993. And he's filming in the middle of 1993 while Jurassic Park is edited and then released, and he has to have Schindler's List out by the end of 1993. He has it out by December of 1993. And I mean, it's beyond comprehension how he had this in him. I'm stunned. I'm stunned. And so, going back to, Schindler's List, I guess this discussion is all going to be about details of this movie, because it's amazing how this film opens up on names and lists of names, and those are continuously presented, making sure we don't see, as I said, these people as unidentified victims or survivors. They're people. There's a scene later in this film where, after we witness another atrocity, where Schindler's survivors are identifying themselves, and each shot is on their face as they state their names. It's one of the many parts of this film that Spielberg attempts to give these people some sort of agency within this hell that they live in. Wally, are there any other details about this movie that stick out to you?
It's in some of the character interactions, actually.
Yep.
There's probably one of the most telling and one of the best scenes, because one question that you get a lot of from people who, I would say know about World War II, but there's a lot going on, under the hood, that, I would say most people don't necessarily deep dive into, you know what I mean? Is the question of, did the Jews know what was going on? And they did not. They heard rumors, but it was like the whole scene where they're in the barracks, in the camp, and they're talking about how the showers aren't really showers, they're actually gas chambers, and people are like, that's preposterous. And you're like, how could that there's no way, it's because something of that level had not been thought of, done at that point, that a structure like this would exist. So when they're all talking and they're like, there's no way that's true, like your friend must have been mistaken. And then the payoff in that scene comes later when they're actually escorted into it, and they're like, oh fuck, like that was real, like that we just shit. You know what I mean? And it's in it's in their facial acting, as like you hear like the pipes kick on one by one, and even then, like, I'm sitting there watching it going, oh, this is gonna be bad. And then like the water hits, and you have like all that tension built up until like the shower actually hits. But it's that setup where they're talking about it, and because a lot of these campers are so far away from other places that if you went, you didn't come back. I mean, there was like a lot of escapees coming back saying, hey, all this happened. You wouldn't know until you got there,
It's interesting you talk about that too.
That's really telling in that pair of scenes,
right?
Where they're talking about like, there's no way. But when they get there and they're shuffled into this room, and it's also one of I would say one of the most intimidating shots in the film is when they're looking at the crematorium chimney and there's fire coming out of it, and it's making this like sound because they were at that point in the war they were trying to just liquidate the camps. Is into the chambers, into the crematorium, into the chambers, into the crematorium, because they knew at that point the war was really turning against them, and so you have this train of people that are expecting to be one place, but now they're here, and it's dark and you can't see anything. It's just the only light that's coming from like outside of the spotlights is this like hell chimney. Where like it really starts to like really hit them, like what is going on here.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that scene with the showers and how there's a few scenes, at least 2 or 3 scenes throughout this movie that are, based around pure luck, where, Schindler goes to look for its ex-Stern, who's been loaded onto a train and gets there, and as he says, what if I was 5 minutes late getting there? That scene in the showers and how he was able to track down that train car that found its way to that camp, and it's amazing. I guess it can kind of also be tied into something where another thing I take away from this movie is humanity. And benevolence can come from unlikely sources, and its trickle down, its trickle down effect is downright amazing, and it's displayed here. The balance that he's able to have here between horror and that amazing luck and humanity is really a fine balance. He's totally in control of everything with it in this movie. Hermano, any other things that stuck out to you?
Yeah, I guess to talk about someone that's sort of on the other side. I thought Ralph Fiennes was really good in this too.
Yeah.
Playing a real piece of shit, but selling it very well. And I couldn't help, as I'm watching this performance from him, I would think that Christoph Waltz must have drew some inspiration for his performance in Inglourious Basterds from this performance. Did you guys feel that at all?
Now that you mention it, I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I kept seeing it. And
I think that I don't think you can compare either of them, just in how Christoph Waltz is what he's doing in Inglourious Basterds versus. Ralph Fiennes looks intimidating if you light him the right way, no matter what. And I think that is he's got a lot of presence to him, a very different presence than what Christoph Waltz brings.
No, I agree. I think the Christoph Waltz performance is certainly like lighter overall, even though he's doing terrible things in that film as well.
Sure.
But yeah, I couldn't help but think of, especially like Ralph Fiennes does have some like lighter moments in this where he's not just like, just shooting people at will or whatever. And I don't know, it struck a note of Christoph Waltz to me for some reason. But
you mentioned Ralph Fiennes, and before we go away from him, he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, rightfully so. And I think while watching this movie, you would think, oh, he won the award, right?
I don't know who he was up against, but I would have thought it would have been a strong contender.
Well, he was up against Pete Postlethwaite for In the Name of the Father, John Malkovich for In the Line of Fire, Leonardo DiCaprio for What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and the man who won it was Tommy Lee Jones for The Fugitive.
Oof.
When you put it in those terms, it's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, well,
a bit disappointing. I mean, Tommy Lee Jones is great in that film, but man, you got to compare the two films.
That seems kind of ridiculous.
Well, that's the thing is the supporting awards always are the more of the outliers. They always give them, they typically give them to somebody who maybe like Tommy Lee Jones, who's had a long career and has felt like they deserve an award at this point, or somebody completely out of the out of the blue. Like for Best Supporting Actress the same year, Anna Paquin won it for The Piano, and she was 11, I think, at the time, the youngest to ever win the award. You think of what's her name for My Cousin Vinny, Marissa Tomei, winning it for that movie, and it's this award is the one that stands out, and how you have a movie that essentially sweeps almost everything else. Schindler's List wins Best Picture, Best Director. Although Liam Neeson lost out to Tom Hanks for Philadelphia, I'm not going to complain about that, to be honest with you.
I'd say that one all right, sure. Because at that point it's a coin toss.
Yeah, you have Best Adapted Screenplay. It wins that, so look, it wins Best Art Direction. It wins Best Cinematography, Janusz Kaminski, of course, and Best Film Editing. And then, of course, like I said, Jurassic Park, it wins for Best Editing of Best Sound Effects and Best Visual Effects, of course, and Best Sound. Spielberg himself made out in this year, and Schindler's List, of course, it's just really interesting, seeing, look, maybe I'm just raw coming off of this movie. I'm so raw with emotion that I'm like, how can anybody, Ralph Fiennes towers above everybody else, literally, within this movie. And it is such a commanding performance of one of the worst people to ever live, and how he's able to draw that out of himself and not go crazy. I don't know, but it just really stands out that Tommy Lee Jones wins this above it. Did I cut you off with anything else, Romano? I'm sorry.
Well, no, you gave me time to look up Ralph Fiennes. I'm just interested because I think he's a pretty, well-respected actor. I'm trying to look up to see how he surely has won an Oscar at this point, right?
Oh no.
No, he's only been nominated twice. Once for The English Patient and once for Schindler's List. Lost both. He did win the BAFTA though for Schindler's List.
Okay.
So that's like the British Oscars, right?
Essentially.
Yeah. So yeah, but weirdly, like as I'm going down the list, nominated so many times for awards, but rarely wins, which is crazy. I'm thinking of his career, and I'm like, wow, like not even one time was he nominated for Voldemort. Come on.
Voldemort, yeah, and of course he's not going to be nominated for Voldemort, but
why not? It was great.
Okay, look, is this a terrible comparison? Do you think he taps in to Eamon Goth, his performance there from years prior for Voldemort?
No, but he's like the Harry Potter generation's version of like Darth Vader.
Yeah. Oh yes, absolutely.
So I mean, like he's important. I'm not saying like the guy that James Earl Jones should have been nominated for his voice work in Star Wars or anything, but like, I mean, it's different. He's actually giving a performance where Darth Vader is like more of like a combination. Someone's in the suit and someone else is doing the voice, But yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe for like kind of like a Lord of the Rings style thing where like maybe the last Harry Potter film, they're like, hey, Ralph Fiennes, we're gonna throw you a bone.
Interesting.
Like I don't know. I just thought maybe like but not even one time. Come on, man. People hate the Harry Potter series apparently.
Yeah, that's it. Back to Schindler's List. I'd like to know any like the look of this film. I'm sure Hermano, you have no problem with the black and white photography.
Absolutely not. I kind of agree with Wally too. It was sort of a it wasn't, I don't know how to describe this, kind of in the way that Wally couldn't describe it as like more like looking sort of like a Citizen Kane type look to it. A lot of like nice shadow work and stuff, but it did seem sort of like overly like sharp. Like it didn't look as filmic as I expected
the word I'm
it
looking
to.
for. Sharp, like super sharp.
Yeah, I just expected it to look more like grainy and like like film stock. But for whatever reason, it looked, because you're expecting a film from this time, they'd automatically go for that look, right? Like a sort of, of the time type film look, but maybe updating it, not like actually shooting on like 8mm film or anything, but like just kind of going for that look. And I felt like he was kind of going for a more, just kind of a cleaner look.
There are,
and I didn't mind that.
there are few criticisms levied at this film, but one of them I've noticed is pretty common, and that's the girl in the red dress, the red coat.
Why? I thought that was great.
But yeah, I was going to ask you, what do you think about that touch?
I thought it was a nice touch, and I couldn't remember how it resolved itself, but as soon as it does, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember feeling really crushed by this as well, because I mean, I thought it was a stroke of genius. Like the entire film, for the most part, is black and white, except for like
the opening.
I think the opening is in color, and then I think at another point there's like the ending, candle flame or something. And then the ending. Yeah. I think within the film he colorized the flames on the candles.
Right.
At times. But the girl in the red dress, I thought it was so good. Like just kind of as a visual cue to follow this kid in a crowd, just maneuvering and just watching Liam Neeson's face react to, oh my God, this little girl, all this chaos going on around her. You're able to easily follow her because he colorizes her in red, and it's such a stark contrast to the rest of the film. And then the way you see that resolve itself later, as like she obviously perished and she's on a cart, and he witnesses that again. It's like such a heartbreaking like beginning and conclusion to this girl's like short life. It's like a visual metaphor for like how short her life was.
And that's actually from a story Audrey Hepburn was telling Steven Spielberg while they were shooting Always.
Yeah.
And so he decided that would be to include. She had seen it during her World War II, and he decided to include it. And I think that's also. What they're trying to use. I think they're trying to use that as like the machination that flips Schindler,
right?
When it was more the brutal stuff you see earlier on, where they're liquidating the ghetto, which is what turns him eventually. He's like, nope, not going to be a Nazi anymore.
Yeah, I agree. It's a powerful tool, and it goes in line with the arc of Oskar Schindler, and it really is interesting to see his arc because he is opportunist from the very beginning of this movie. In the first third of this movie, you see him as this opportunist. I like that shot of him going into this this ball or this dinner. And how he manipulates his way, maneuvers his way into, by glad handing these soldiers and these higher ups, and how he ingratiates them into their crowd and makes a name for himself. And you can see it's only for his own gain, and how he states that several times throughout this movie, that he just wants to make suitcases of money in order to be able to buy whatever he wants, whenever he wants, for his mistresses, for his wife, for anybody. And to see that turn, by halfway through this movie, his interactions with Itzhak Stern, his interaction with other factory workers, and what he's seeing. And then, of course, he comes across Amon Goth and how, these atrocities that he's witnessing himself at firsthand, and or even secondhand, and the results of them, and how he's doing everything within his power without revealing his hand, as you guys have said before. It's the tightest tightrope you could ever walk, the most crowded minefield you could ever walk, and how he was able to rescue over 1,000 people, and how that resolves itself at the end is it's something else.
It's also a biblical story too when you look at it on through another lens.
Yeah.
So, oftentimes in the Bible, it's quoted that there's no way for a rich man to get into heaven outside of him to get rid of all his possessions and become a poor man. And over the course of the movie, because of his, bribes and doing the things to keep these Jews protected, he goes through all of his riches. He ends up dying penniless and having to basically live off of donations from the Jewish Foundation after the war. Like he never sees success in business again. He, has to basically live on the donations that they give him. But here's this, but that's his payment into heaven. that's what gets him. That's the fact that he saved all these lives. That he, when he made that turn, he gave everything that he had to make sure that they could stay safe because they had nothing.
Hermano, what did you make of the epilogue of this movie with the survivors and their, I guess, acting counterparts joining them at times?
Yeah, I thought that was a really nice touch. Like, usually at the end of films like this, you'll see like the real person. I thought it was nice. At one point, I didn't realize they were even doing it until I saw Ben Kingsley walking down his counterpart, and I was like, oh, I just realized. And yeah, I thought it was a nice touch, and all the the bits of information you get at the end with, just how when you just really hits you, and the realization hits you that. When they basically describe it as like he basically saved like generations of people. Yeah. Like there's generations of people alive right now because of what he did, and that's when you really, it hits and you're just understanding like, wow, like the just the enormity of what he did and what he accomplished at the end of the day, like it's just insane. And like Wally was saying, I mean, if there's ever a guy that bought his way into, if there's such a thing as like the afterlife and heaven and stuff like that, that dude's definitely up there, man, for just this alone.
It's only 48 years after the end of World War II when this movie was released.
Yeah.
It's not a long time.
No, not a long time at all. Wally, did you feel just as strongly about the epilogue?
I enjoyed seeing it. Like that really, I think that was the right cap of the movie for me. We're seeing, like, the statistics of, like, there's only this many, Jewish people living in this part of the country, but, like, the Schindler Jews have, are at least twice that many, because of what this guy did to keep them all safe and to protect them and everything that he did to that end. So I thought that was quite the cap.
Well, let me ask you guys: was there anything that did not work for you in this movie?
No, I think everything. I mean, really, it's just the runtime. More than anything.
That's the thing, though, is I don't know how you can make this movie as powerful as it is at any shorter length.
You can't do it shorter. That's the other thing.
Yeah, because it's all about. I mean, I don't say it. A lot of it is about Oskar Schindler's arc, but also about all the people that you come across. Like I said, this movie is all about people and faces and how Spielberg is able to make them feel like realized humans. And I don't know how you can do that otherwise. Hermano, anything for you?
No, I was just trying to think while you were talking, and really nothing comes to mind. I mean, I would stop short of saying it's like the perfect film, but I also can't point to anything specific that I was like, oh, that doesn't work for me or whatever. I think everything that he was trying to get across comes across really well.
And as far as runtime goes, too, like, the one thing I also have to keep in mind, too, is that the events of this movie start way back in 1935, 1934.
Right.
So for Europe, this is a much longer period of time versus the United States involvement from 1941 to 1945.
I think, Wally, you had said something about how this movie doesn't even come close to showing how real, how true the atrocities were.
Oh, it does not.
Right. But there's a documentary from 1985 that I believe friend of the show Mark Herney has talked about before on the show is Shoah. It's 9.5 hours long, and all it does is recounts the stories of the Holocaust through interviews and witnesses, perpetrators as well as survivors. And I can only imagine that is as powerful or more powerful than this movie, especially if they're real life accounts and going into great detail. So, a movie I have not seen, a movie that look, it's 9.5 hours long. That should not be a barrier for a movie like this. And I'm sure at some point in my life I will have to take the time to dig into it. But as far as Schindler's List, I guess we can get into grades. Wally,
give it an A++.
Yeah, this is an A+ movie as well. Hermano,
same. Can't give it any less than an A+.
So
side note, this is also like the pivot point for Steven Spielberg, because after this he goes into Amistad, Saving Private Ryan.
Well, Yes.
Munich.
Yes, actually, I was just about to say our next list of shame movie in 5 episodes will be another Steven Spielberg film, and that is Saving Private Ryan. Wally, another movie of his that you have not seen.
That is right.
Jeez,
Wally hates Spielberg.
I've seen clips of it. I've never seen the entire movie.
Yeah. I'm curious, Hermano. What do you think he's going to come away with? Do you think he'll be as positive as he was with this movie, or no? You think he's going to have more criticisms?
I think he'll probably have similar because actually, you know what? I think again, I'm not the historian. I don't follow World War I and World War II as closely as Wally does in researching it or whatever. But from what I remember feeling like Saving Private Ryan felt pretty true to the time period. He may have some qualms with maybe maybe it's not going as hard as maybe it should,
right?
With some of the the battle stuff, but I think overall I think he's going to come away liking it.
Yeah, this is a movie I saw in the theater and I've seen several times since, and I think it's just as powerful every time, so it'll be good to revisit. Okay, that does it for this episode of the First Time Watchers podcast. Donate via patreon.com/firsttimewatchers or buy stuff at zazzle.com/firsttimewatchers.
Talk to us on Twitter at 1STTimeWatchers on Twitter.
Or write to us at our email, firsttimewatchers@gmail.com.
Download our episodes on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. Please leave a review because we love feedback. If you have any suggestions for movies for us to watch, please send a tweet or an email. Speaking of suggestions, let's recommend a movie. Wally.
All right, so I'm going to recommend a documentary to you that I watched several times over the course of 7th and 8th grade, 9th grade. I did a lot of projects on World War II throughout high school, and one of the documentaries I use as a source author, and the book that goes along with it. The book is very, very good. It's called Kitty Returned to Auschwitz. Kitty Hart-Moxon, a Jewish survivor from the Holocaust, goes back to Auschwitz 34 years later, where she revives her imprisonment in Life Under the Third Reich, where she's taking this camera crew to the barracks that she was in, and like the what they had to use for like bathrooms, and like pointing out where structures were, and just detailing what life was like for her as a little girl, and as a young woman in the camps during this time. It's very good. And I think it's absolutely worth watching.
I'm gonna make this a little bit lighter. A movie that was released the year prior to Schindler's List and also has Ben Kingsley in it. That is Sneakers, starring Robert Redford and Dan Aykroyd and Sidney Poitier and River Phoenix and David Strathairn. A security pro finds his past coming back to haunt him when he and his unique team are tasked with retrieving a particularly important item. Look, guys, you know what? We might have to revisit this before 50 episodes is up.
I'm in.
Because
I love this movie.
This movie holds the hell up, I think, for something that relies on technology and ingenuity as kind of like a heisty type of movie. I think it's something that holds up and is a lot of fun. It's a good whodunit and mystery. So I would recommend Sneakers. Hermano.
All right, I'm going to recommend a film that came out 4 years after Schindler's List. Saw this in the theater. I remember hearing about this film beforehand and thinking, how the hell is this going to work? But I was blown away. From 1997, Life is Beautiful. When an open-minded... What's that?
Yeah, all right.
When an open-minded Jewish waiter and become victims of the Holocaust, he uses a perfect mixture of will, humor, and imagination to protect his son from the dangers around their camp. We've all seen this, correct?
Yes.
I've not seen it since it... I don't think I've seen it since it came out.
Okay, I'm going to say something... I'm going to say something very controversial. Maybe the most controversial thing I've ever said on the show. I prefer this to Schindler's List.
Oh, get out of here. Nope.
I'm 100% serious.
You're fired. You're fired at 450. You're not even making it to 500.
All right, guys, this is my last episode. See you later. But I'm being completely sincere. This film, where Schindler's List didn't quite get me there with like the emotional impact, this film always does. I think this film does something completely magical with balancing the comedy elements with the dramatic stuff. I mean, I don't know if you guys agree, but I thought this film would be impossible. Impossible. Like, I thought it was going to be an absolute bomb. No one's going to get on board with this. This is going to just absolutely get destroyed. And I was so blown away when I saw it. I was like, he did something, what I thought was completely impossible, like to somehow balance those things and get people to sort of be on board with both in a film that, with its backdrop, just seems like a really hard sell, and on paper. And I think he knocked it out of the park. I mean, Roberto Benigni in this won the Oscar for his performance in this, and well-deserved, because he's phenomenal in this. And I don't know, like, the ending of this film absolutely guts me every single time I watch it. I cry my eyes out at just like the lengths he went to shield his son from the horrors of the world. I think just really, I don't know, I think it tugs at my heartstrings more than the Schindler's List movie does when it comes to that, like just kind of the heart, wrenching stuff. So yeah, Life is Beautiful from 1997. If you haven't seen it, have a good cry.
All right, stay tuned for our next episode. Second Time Watchers is back. This time, it's Hermano's pick, and we will be discussing the 1991 Tom Berenger film, Shattered.
That's the First Time Watchers podcast, because we like to watch.
So we only got 50 of these to go, guys.
Yep.
And we'll be done in about a little over a year.
Sounds about right.
Hermano's the happiest man alive.
Then you will be free elves.
Free elves. What will he do with all the spare time?
Are we like Dobby?
I'm going to start playing Magic down the street over Manowar. That's on Wednesday nights. They do Modern.
Oh, okay.
I'll stop neglecting my family.
I will just watch more movies, and I will neglect my family.
Oh, speaking of movies.
Armando goes in the other room. Suddenly, like, the whole house is, like, aged. He's like, where have I been this entire time? They're like, the De Silvas. The De Silvas left 75 years ago.
What were you going to say, Armando?
This needs a little setup. So there was a movie crew scouting locations around my neighborhood, like maybe a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
Didn't really know what it was about, though I did hear rumblings that they were filming a movie in Fairhaven, at Fairhaven High, because of the way it looks. It looks kind of like really historic.
Okay.
And I heard there was a movie filming there with Paul Giamatti.
Oh, nice.
Using the school, I guess. I don't know what the movie was about, but so I thought it was related to that. But apparently there's a totally different movie also filming in the area, and they were scouting on my street, looking at this particular house on my street, like on the corner.
Okay.
Because it's the one that has probably one of the better views of like the hurricane barrier with the new bike path and like,
Sure.
the water and stuff.
Right.
So I didn't know what it was. Mia didn't seem to know, and her sister didn't really know either. So we just, we were like, well, whatever. Maybe they didn't pick our spot or whatever. So Mia comes home yesterday, and there's like a paper stuck to our door. And it's like pretty much announcing that they're going to be filming on our street at the end of May. And it's a movie called Finest Kind.
Okay.
Directed by Brian Helgeland.
Helgeland, okay.
Who wrote LA Confidential.
Oh, okay.
He's originally from this area.
Oh, nice.
And this movie has Ben Foster, Tommy Lee Jones.
Nice.
And supposedly the neighbor that they... so it is the White House on the corner, the one I mentioned. They're
Sure.
the ones that they're going to be using the third floor of that house to shoot. And apparently they're saying that they were told that Kirsten Dunst is going to shoot her scenes up there.
Cool.
So I was like, but when I checked the movie on IMDb, she's not even listed. So I don't know if she has like a small part or it's a spoiler to say she's in it. So spoiler, guys. But yeah, we were told that like they're going to be here, and I think they're only going to be here for one day.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think it's going to be like they're going to be here for like weeks or anything. Like I think it's just probably a couple scenes they're going to shoot here with the backdrop of the water and stuff. And I think we're supposed to all take our cars off the street because I think it might be a period thing.
Oh, okay.
It's supposed to be about two brothers from wherever in Massachusetts get drawn into like Boston crime, like a criminal, I don't know, enterprise or something in Boston. I don't know.
That sounds like a cool movie.
Yeah.
Nice. Kirsten
Yeah,
Dunst.
we'll see.
Nice. Maybe maybe you'll see some Jesse Plemons.
Oh, I'd be like, dude, tell me what Bryan Cranston smells like.
Tell me what it smells like. Wow.
Tell me what Jesse from Breaking Bad, Aaron Paul. Tell me what his breath smells like.
Yeah, we get two movies filmed down in the quarter. We got the Interview with a Vampire series.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Did we get a series?
And the Nick Cage Dracula movie, and I still haven't found Nick Cage yet.
Oh, Nick Cage's Dracula movie. Oh my God, that's a bust.
I
scene.
saw the image
Yeah,
for
so
that.
they're filming it down here. I'm like actively looking for them because I keep seeing the movie crews when I go on my lunch break.
Oh man.
I gotta start shaking hands.
Oh yeah, that can't wait for that one. I mean, talk about casting. Perfect casting.
Mr. Shortbread himself.